Hi and hello, watch fans, and welcome to another edition of the Real Time Show. With me, your friendly neighborhood jeweler, Alain Joseph. I have my dear friend and very friendly watchmaker, master watchmaker, second time on the show. As we promised, we would bring Erik van Leeuwen, the founder of Maas Watches, on the show while he was in Austria, in Völkermarkt, in Carinthia, Austria, finishing his third internship at Habring Watchmakers. But because his internet connection was spotty there, we decided to reschedule for the first week when he was back in the Netherlands. Welcome back, Erik.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks. Good to be back.
First things first, were you homesick there in Austria, spending 6 weeks just making watches?
Yes, I can say, unfortunately and fortunately, that I got homesick. So the turning point was around 4 weeks that I basically thought maybe it's good that I go back now because I missed my family and friends a lot. But, I was there with a purpose and I wanted to achieve my goal and I did it. But I can tell you that on the way to Austria, I took 2 days to go there. But on the way back, it was just full gas, 1 day back to home.
That's good to hear, and I'm quite sure your wife is and was happy to hear this as well.
Yes.
For our dear listeners that are tuning in and missed part 1, if you go to June 2nd, 2024, we aired the first part where Erik sat down with me to share his journey of pivoting in his career, in his life, quitting a C-level job, turning watchmaker, but not just a watchmaker. He wants to be a master watchmaker. We recorded part 1. Then we agreed that towards the end of his education in Schoonhoven, Netherlands, where he's rounding up his education as a watchmaker, we would record part 2. And in an undefined period, we'll record part 3 and maybe 4 to see how his journey as an entrepreneur and watchmaker will go. Because if you want more background information, you can find more about Maas Watches on the website maeswatch.com, maaswatchmaker.com. So first things first, Erik, did you actually learn something there in Austria, or were you all 6 weeks like, hey, dude, I know this better, Richard and Maria Habring?
I wish. I learned a lot. And I'm very flattered that you call me a master watchmaker, but I can assure you that when you work for already 1 day with Mr. Habring, you quite know well that you're not a master watchmaker yet, and that it will take another 40 years at least to reach his level. And of course, I had some contact with friends and family during my stay over there, and I had a comparison. Like, I think I was acting pretty much on championship level in soccer, right? And suddenly I had to train with Manchester City and also perform on Manchester City level. So it has been challenging, but I learned a tremendous lot about watchmaking at this level.
For our listeners that maybe are not that familiar with Habring, so Maria and Richard are a couple. They are master watchmakers. They have a brand. You can find their website at habring2.com. I have been admiring Richard ever since I discovered the IWC Rattrapante Portugieser, and I was a fortunate owner of several models. And only because of that, I've discovered who the inventor of that module of a Rattrapante on basically a base Valjoux 7750 caliber was made. And ever since I've been following him, one of his watches is on my wish list. They are a manufacturer. So maybe just give us a little intro about them, the brand, and why you specifically so much wanted to work with them, and that you've spent 3 internships with them locally in Austria.
Yeah. Well, that's basically because I always look for places where other people don't go. And so that means I'm not looking after working for the big brands or the big factories or the big jewelry shops. and I got to know Habring through a podcast from Hodinky at the time, when they still made good podcasts. And I was really surprised by the level of modesty that both Maria and Richard showed during that podcast, while at the same time making really astonishing timepieces, and also, as you said, nice complications on their movements. And so I reached out to them during already my first year at school, asking, look, in 3 years' time, I would have to do a final internship. And I'd like to do that with you because I would like to learn from the best. And well, modest and nice as they are, they got back to me and said, well, okay, we are open to that, but let's first get to know each other a bit better. So we invite you to come for a week. And after that 1 week, we'll decide if there is a mutual liking. And if yes, of course, you're always welcome to learn. And that's how the journey started. So 3 years ago, I was there the first time. Last year, I was the second time. And that time, I was really focusing on finishing parts. And now my internship that I needed to do to finish my education at school, it was a full 6 weeks, working full-time on watches, and specifically on the Habring movements.
How old are they? Now, I actually don't know that.
Richard is 56, and Maria, I don't know for sure, because you shouldn't ask a woman to how old she is, but I guess she's around 50 as well.
And they actually are active a very long time in the watch industry.
Yeah.
But the brand Habring Square, so it's not Habring 2, but Square, exists less than 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, 20 years this year.
That's 20 years. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
What did they do before, and why did they venture out to start their own watch brand?
Well, Richard was master watchmaker at the Richemont Group, and as such has been working for IWC, where he was working next to Kurt Klaus, working on complications and development of movements. And after that, he became trainer for Lange & Söhne. So basically, he trained watchmakers at Lange & Söhne. And that was the time when he was in Germany. And he's born in Austria. And one day when he got back to Austria from Germany, he met Maria in the train, literally. They were sitting opposite each other. And they started talking about their mutual profession. And it turned out that Maria was also working in Glashütte as a watchmaker. And they fell in love. Basically, it's a real love story. And within 12 months, they got married and decided to start a watch brand together. And the main motivation for Richard to start a watch brand was that he was fed up working for the big groups, where everything is about making money as much as possible, as fast as possible, and not about the quality of the products as such.
That's actually a beautiful story. I didn't know that. And while looking at their website, their tagline is made with love.
Yes.
And the watches are actually their babies, because I don't think they have children. No, so that's actually a beautiful story and no marketing mumbo jumbo.
It is.
Yeah. So how much do they actually make in-house?
Not all parts are technically possible to make in-house themselves, but all parts are really tailor-made and designed by Habring themselves. And they've outsourced, of course, the laser cutting of the wheels, for example, to a specialized company. But those wheels you will never find in any other movement, because they're only designed and applied by Habring. And only if and that's also something that's quite interesting to share also with the listeners, is that if you have an own movement and you have all the parts produced by external suppliers, not a single movement just fits like that as a working piece. So on each and every piece, being it a bridge or a main plate, there needs to be some rework done sometimes to open up a hole or to close a hole or whatever. So there's a lot of manual work involved, even if all the parts are made according to the highest standards.
What attracted you to either the brand and or the couple? as a watch maker and a watch collector, because you also personally own a Habrin wristwatch. And this will lead to the question, because in the previous episode, you've mentioned that you, together with Benzinger, are the only ones in the world allowed to use Habrin calibers for their own watches. Why did you want that? And is that still the case? Because maybe you left Austria with a big fight and you guys might not speaking terms anymore. So that's an assumption I'm making. Walk us through that process.
Well, after the first internship at Habring, I was already impressed about the level of quality of the movement, and also all the attention that is put into each and every movement to make it as accurate as possible. And it's almost insane how much effort is put in all the details to get the escapement, which is basically the most important part of the watch, performing at insane levels. And I was surprised to see how much you can achieve by focusing on those technical details. And when my idea popped up to start my own watch brand, it was basically a no-brainer that I would like to have such a movement as well for my own very personal watch. And I knew at that time that Habring was not supplying to many other watchmakers. So that would also be a unique selling point for my own watch brand, obviously. And I'm very happy and glad that both Richard and Maria were open to supply me the movements. And to answer your last question, I did not leave with a big fight. As a matter of fact, I left with a box full of movements that are not 100% finished yet, because I would like to apply a different finish than Habring does on his watches. But I have all the parts and components, let's say, sub-assembled here in my working area. So the first batch of movements is about to be finished.
Congratulations. I have no idea how to do sounds on the podcast, but imagine I would have hit the button of applause. Congratulations. I'm super happy for you.
Thanks.
And for me, because I want a mass watch. Is it the Movement Habring Square A11B?
Yes.
They use that in the Felix watch.
Yes, that's their entry-level Habring. And I wanted to start also on a, let's say, entry-level. And so I chose that movement as the base movement. But I already before we started recording this show, I told you already that for the next watches I would like to introduce, I will also use other calibers of Habring, because I've worked on so many different calibers and all this technical ingenuity. I'd like to have that in my watches as well.
So let's talk about that caliber, because I know you can get it either with a sub-seconds or a central seconds hand.
Yeah.
Is the sub-seconds a module, or did he create the platine in this way that you don't gain thickness by choosing one or the other?
No, in fact, the central second, each and every central second that Habring uses is a deadbeat second, which is a very thin complication, basically using more or less the same parts as the 70-50 chronograph module. But he's one of the few watchmakers that uses the deadbeat second complication a lot, and I really like it.
But the sub-seconds isn't.
No.
Okay, so the central seconds is a complication and a module built on top. So you will go for a sub-dial?
Yes. Yeah, in my first watch, yes.
Because of the slimness?
Yeah.
Or because you like sub-dials?
Both, actually. The slimness is the main part, because I'd like to have a very thin watch that you can wear easily under your cuffs. But it also allows you to do some nice design twists on the dial. So that's also something I like about it.
So now a philosophical question for you. Why do idiots like you and me like deadbeat seconds on mechanical watches? So this question has been asked a lot. The differentiator, if you see somebody, you'll look at a sweeping hand or ticking. If it's sweeping, it's mechanical.
Yeah.
Could be a spring drive technically, right? But let's say 9 out of 10, it's mechanical. So basically it's reverse psychology. You're making a mechanical watch even more expensive to make it look that it operates like a quartz.
Yes.
So what's wrong with us?
I don't know. I think it's also a matter of let's say distinguishing those who are in the know from those who don't have a clue. I mean, if you're aware about that these complications even exist, I think there's a lot of watch enthusiasts who don't even know about the deadbeat second or would not recognize it. So it's if you recognize it and you know that it is possible and which brands do apply it, it's a sort of like a small group of people like, we know what's so special about it.
So you're taking it to the flexing side of things. What I always explain to people, why watchmakers want to pursue it. If you look at timekeeping, chronometry, we love the 36,000 beating calibers like the El Primero. Patek also has it now, let's say the 10 hertz ones.
Yeah.
Because if it's a chronograph, it's about timing. And then if it's sports or whatever, you do want to know what split seconds are. No less than and rounded second. But in chronometry, if you want to set the time, we usually stop hours, minutes, and seconds.
Yeah.
We don't care for 1/5 of a second. We just want to know, is it 31, 30, or 29 seconds? So that's why I love it, because it goes to the depth of chronometry.
Well, which is true. And from a technical point of view, I can tell you that it's quite a nightmare, because if one thing is important is that you exactly align the hand with the markers on the dial. And because it looks crazy if it's not exactly aligned. And it's quite a burden to have it exactly aligned. So also from a watchmaking perspective, it's a challenge to do it right. And if you're able to do it right, then it makes you proud. And it shows that the person who made the watch knows what he's doing.
While we're talking, I'm actually looking at the architecture of the A11B.
Yeah.
The caliber. I respectfully so I'm saying this looks like a baby FP Joon, because they incorporate this oval logo inside the quarter plate.
Yeah.
And you see the Germanic pedigree, because it's basically almost a 3/4 plate. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So as an Austrian laying deep roots in both the Nordic Swiss Schaffhausen region and the Glashütte region, but is there also an added benefit in quality to do this, the 3/4, or is it more heritage?
No, it's quality. It's all about stability. And if you have one bridge, which is very solid and sturdy, it gives more accuracy to the watch. That's plain and simple. And that's the main reason. Habring likes to make beautiful watches, but first and foremost, it needs to be technically perfect. So that means that each component is not there without a reason. And also the 3/4 bridge is one of those reasons. It's more stiff, so it makes that the wheels are more stable in between the main plate and the bridge.
What chronometric precision do they, and therefore you, pursue for these calibers?
0 to max 3 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very, very tight delta. So very small tolerance, because we all know that 0 is literally impossible.
Yeah.
Do they have this tested by a third-party lab?
In the past, they have done it several times just to compare and to see how far they were. And each time they got the results back that they met all the criteria.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. I see that they have engraved "Made in Austria" on the ratchet wheel for the barrel.
Yeah.
What are you going to put on there?
Well, I have a plain ratchet wheel with me, so I will finish it differently. I will finish it with snailing technique instead of sonnenschlief, as they will call it in Austria. I don't know what I will put on as a text yet. I'm focusing now first on finishing all the parts in the way that I like it.
If you're going to put made in Rotterdam, I'm canceling my order hereby.
I know. That's one of the reasons I'm a bit reluctant to share what I would like to put on it. And maybe I can tailor it according to customers' needs.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. So, but let's take it from silly jokes to again a philosophical discussion. Can you write "made in the Netherlands"? Because what is the definition for "made in the Netherlands"?
First of all, I don't think that the Dutch people are really strict when it comes to these kinds of regulations, except for the Gouda cheese. But no, I would not put made in the Netherlands. Maybe finished in the Netherlands or assembled or whatever, because the parts are not made in the Netherlands. So, and I'm not going to lie about it. I mean, I'm proud that I can apply a movement of Habering, and those movements come from Austria. Maybe European made. That would be a nice idea.
That would be beautiful, because I don't think any high-end watchmaker does that. There are a few more that are as transparent as you. Definitely not enough. Now, going on a daydreaming trip, do you have the wish, dream, or ambition to create your own calibers on a Habering level in-house in the future?
Yes, I have the dream for sure, without any doubt. But having worked so closely with Habering and see what he does and has been doing to create these movements and all the complications that he uses, and he still keeps on developing new complications. I don't think I will have the time in my life to get all this know-how that I would need to do that. So maybe with the help of Richard, for example, yes, for sure. But from ground on, all by myself, I think I'm a bit too late in my life to having made the career change. If I would have done that, let's say 30 years ago, I would have had plenty of time to design and create a movement from scratch myself. But I have to be realistic, I guess.
A famous Dutchman said every disadvantage has its advantage.
Yeah.
Did your coming late to the party and you making it into a disadvantage? But I think that it gives you different insights that could be a huge advantage. Did they notice that during your last or all three internships? Did you shed a new light on things, maybe that the Haberings learned something from you?
That would be a question that we would have to ask them. It's difficult to give a plain answer to that, but since there is a huge gap, obviously, in know-how and between Habering and me when it comes to watchmaking, right? But I have more experience in, let's say, the digital world, so that gave us some interesting discussions sometimes to meet each other somewhere in between. Like, okay, Richard, I do this in this way, and he said, okay, but we have been taught to do it like this and this. So yes, of course, but when it comes to pure watchmaking, I'm afraid I cannot teach them a lot. It's more the other way around.
You can take it to a more helicopter view of things. So in the digital, maybe in marketing, maybe in running their company, because you come from a high level of corporate organizations. So maybe you've added a benefit in that view, or to market their watches as sold watch, because I see they only have 13 retailers in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe you've discussed that, and probably that is on purpose. Maybe they don't want more, maybe they can't produce more. So you can take it that direction.
We have discussed obviously about the retail model and their online strategy in general. Because if you go to their website, it's not like the most fancy website you could think of, right? So, but they are, as I told you, they are really modest people, and the most important thing to them in their life is to be happy and to do something that they like and that makes them happy. Living in Carinthia, which is a very beautiful part of Austria, it also means that you need to have enough spare time to enjoy the mountains, to enjoy the lakes and everything that Carinthia has to offer. So they are really satisfied with the level of sales that they have. And that level of sales is already for a couple of years on the same level. And they're satisfied. So they say, why bother looking for new retailers or doing online campaigns or be an Instagram influencer who makes us sell more watches, because we don't need to sell more watches.
How many watches do they make a year?
Around 300.
Do they have a waiting list?
Yes.
For how long?
It depends a bit on the model, obviously, but between 3 and 6 months.
So basically, they're doing you a favor to sell you calibers because they need them themselves.
Yes, that's correct. And as you probably know, is they do quite some collaborations with platforms like Monochrome. They did a collaboration with Masina Lab. So those watches also sold over a longer period of time. But a consistent flow of collaboration models.
How would a listener that listen to this episode go about if they want to purchase a Habring watch because they don't have an e-commerce section on their website?
No.
What's the best way? The road of least resistance?
Send an email to Maria, info@habring2.com, and she will reply you personally with the questions, what type of model you would like to have, what kind of strap, and she will confirm the order.
Good. And this is a shout out. And this is for our American listeners, and we have many of you. Shout out to you, boys and girls. My dear friend Martin Pulli in Philadelphia also is a huge Habring fan, and he stocks them. So if you're in the US, another road of lesser resistance is talking to him. Hit up Martin.
Yes.
Have you changed your... Well, actually, I need to rephrase. Not change your strategy or idea. Did it materialize or crystallize a bit more since our last recording? And did you get orders in since our last recording?
Yeah, to start with your last question, yes, I got. I was really surprised to have so many positive reactions. Also, people explaining their interest and telling me, okay, when you have your first watch ready, I'd like to purchase one. So yes, I'm really happy. And your first question, did something change? Not necessarily. I had good discussions with Habring about what I'd like to do to my watch. To give you an example, I will finish my bridges in frosting technique, bead blasting, and apply hand anglage because I like that, and I think that's part of the artisanal way of watchmaking. And Habring doesn't like that. And he doesn't like that for several reasons. First of all, he says, well, with bead blasting, you always run the risk that you damage your bridge a bit and that it's not 100% flat anymore. And that will have an influence on the performance of the movement. And the second thing, he says, look, hand anglage is nice, but it takes too much time and you can't make any money. You can also do it with a machine. If you polish it nicely, only an expert will see that it's not done by hand. So we have we agree to disagree on that. However, he told me quite some things about the plating of the movement because Habring uses rhodination to finish his movements, and I will apply rose gold finish. So he taught me how to do the sequence of plating in order to have the nice rose gold finish. But that's something he personally doesn't like. So he challenged me quite a lot on, okay, are you sure you want to do it like that? Or can't you do it in this and this and this way? And it was nice to have these discussions from time to time.
But I think that's a beautiful trifecta because he doesn't need a competitor, although I don't think he cares. But why would you be a copycat? So it's a good thing for him and their brand.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing for you because you're doing your own thing. That's awesome because you're an artist. And thirdly, for the consumer, it adds value because it's something new. So it's a beautiful trifecta. And I'm actually happy to hear it. And I think it's also fun for them, for Maria and Richard, that you want to do something. Because as a mentor, as a teacher, because that's what they are,
Yeah.
it challenges them to get out of their comfort zone and break their repetition of the monotonous daily routines and say, hey, he wants to do something different. How would I have done that if I would have chosen that route?
Yeah, that's for sure. And of course, I they are my mentors without any doubt. And they follow my journey with great interest because to them it's completely strange that a guy that 6 years ago wasn't even thinking about being a watchmaker and 6 years later does an internship with them and he starts talking about different finishing techniques and a different plating technology. So they follow with great interest the developments, and I had to promise Richard to show my first watch to him first. So I will do that obviously because I want, he's a teacher, and I want to make him proud in the end of the day. So I would be very happy to show my first piece to him.
That's lovely to hear because I guess they get a lot of requests to take on interns.
Yes.
A lot of people think that taking on interns is free labor, but me as a mentor and a teacher as well, and in our company we have a lot of interns, and my dad always had interns. It's about giving back because it's not free labor. It costs you a lot of energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you need to educate somebody and they usually don't stay in your company. So it's a brain drain. Do they have a fixed rule of the number of interns they want, or is it all ad hoc? So whenever there's a click, because it was nice that they told you, let's get to know each other. So are you the first apprentice, basically, protégé they have, or are there others?
No, they have been working with interns a lot from Germany as well as Austria, but Austria doesn't bring out enough watchmakers, so the pool has been dried up, to be honest. So the last they had one from Finland a couple of years ago, and the last was also 2 or 3 years ago from Germany. Their problem is that there's not enough watchmakers in the DACH region, like Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. There are obviously, but they go to the Swiss watchmakers. So they are really open to interns, but they can't find them basically, which is a pity, I guess.
Definitely. So everybody who's on the fence and you want to do a career switch and you're not as young as Eric and I are anymore, hit him up. Eric is a lovely guy, not just on the mic, but in real life. And I've actually now, since we recorded the first one, we've actually worked together. So he's not Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, because some people put on their lab coats and the magnifying glass and the screwdriver in their hands turn into Draculas. But I've had the honor to have Eric in our atelier, and I can vouch for the fact that he's even nicer. So I should have started by asking you during this episode, walk us through the moment you got into the car, you arrived in Carinthia, and what did you do exactly in these 6 weeks? So here goes, Eric. You got in the car, and then what?
1,500 kilometers down south, driving through many tunnels in Austria. And on the Monday, the 10th of June, I started basically. And basically, before I drove to Austria, I sent all the formal documents that Richard needed to sign for my school, because it wasn't in the end a formal internship to finish my studies. So I applied Google Translate because, of course, the school doesn't apply for any English documents. So I translated them, every single one of them. And Richard is a very, let's say, stick to the rules type of guy. And one of the things that were in the documents that you needed to repair or slash service at least 4 different types of movements. And when I went there, my basic goal was to build my own movements from scratch, which I will apply in my own watch. But Richard said, no, according to your school, you need to do also some repair and maintenance work. So I have prepared you a couple of watches from customers of ours, some dating already back 20 years, having the first movements they had to quite recent movements with split seconds chronograph, for example. So the first weeks I was working on customer watches to disassemble, clean them, and regulate them again. And in the meantime, he said, look, if you're going to make your own watch movements and watch parts, one thing that you also need to know is to make your own tools. Because if you have your own tools, you become much more efficient in your work, but also you reduce the risk of damaging parts, which are quite expensive, because you have a specialized tool for that. So I've spent many hours behind the Chauvelin 70 lathe, doing lathe work, also some milling work. I did finishing of parts, and the last weeks of my internship, I basically started building my own movements. So one must imagine that the main plates come in from the factory. They will be slightly sandblasted to move away any burrs. Then all the jewels need to be put in, all the positioning pins, all the screw threads, everything needs to be put in from scratch up to a complete running movement. All the wheels, the pivots, and the driving pinions need to be riveted. The balance is made from 8 components from start to finish, need to be assembled and tested, obviously. So that takes a lot of time. And I can tell now from my own experience how much time goes into making a very simple, basic movement like this. It's not even a chronograph or a jumping second. It's just a basic plain movement. How much time and effort is needed to build a watch like that.
How many hours a day were you in the atelier?
9 hours. 9 hours a day, yes.
And what did you do with the other 15 with spotty internet?
There was a bar next to my apartment, and there was the European Championships of football. So I watched some games, but without joking, I needed to make a daily report about my internship for school. So I was in the evening when I came home, I cooked, and then I started working on my summary of the day, including pictures and what I've learned and what I would like to improve, and sort of reflection on all the activities done. And I had many, let's say, philosophical questions with Habring during these days. And that was something to digest during the evening hours. And that's basically also what made this internship so valuable, because we had a sort of Socratic approach. At least Richard was asking me all the times questions about why do you do it like this, and why, up to a point that, okay, now I understand basically what he wants to teach me, right? At school, you learn basically how to do things, and he taught me why things are done in a certain way and why certain things should not be done in a certain way.
Would you want to have done an internship elsewhere? Because I don't think it's normal to do all 3 at the same atelier, correct? For Schoonhoven.
No, as a matter of fact, for Schoonhoven, just one internship is already enough. So the first 2 I really did on my personal account, personal ambition, and instigation. Is that a English word? Only the third one, the last one, was a formal one that I really needed to do to finish my studies.
So would you have liked to work at other ateliers, or you're actually happy about the evolution of doing it 3 times?
I'm really happy about the evolution of doing it 3 times. And first and foremost, because that enabled me to compare between my first time and my last time. And I remember that the last day of my first time, I was asking to work on a jumping second movement. And I opened it and I disassembled the part, and I was really like, holy shit, how can I ever make this? And now flash forward 2 years later, I think I did 4 or 5 movements with a jumping second without any problem. And because you work on the same movements in the same company, you can easily follow your own progression, which is maybe a bit more difficult if you have different places for an internship.
If Habrings would have turned you down, who would have been your next choice, or what atelier or watchmaker?
Wow, that's a good question. And honestly, I think then my life maybe be different, because what I learned, the choices I made so far is also basically because I had the experience at Habri. And if I look at my fellow students who start their internship after this summer break, they all go to jewel shops, and they will replace basically parts on movements that are handed in by customers. And that's something I really don't want to do. So in the case that Habring would have turned me down, and I would have ended up basically servicing mass products, I don't know if I would have ended up with the idea of starting my own watch brand, to be honest. Habring put me basically on that line.
So because you went there, or you created your own fortune by pursuing an internship that wasn't mandatory for your education. So that's your own ambition, your own initiative. You created your own luck. But going there initially, you did not had in mind that you wanted to start your own high-end watch brand. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, that's amazing.
Perfect.
So it's a serendipity.
Yes, it is. It is.
So you should actually call your first 2 models Maria and Richard.
Yeah, but then I would be a sort of copycat, because they also give names to their watches. So yeah.
I'm just kidding. But I need to push you on an answer. So you got turned down in a hypothetical Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
You got turned down by Maria and Richard. Who would you have hunted down and spammed and stalked to get an apprenticeship?
Groeneveld.
Why?
Because I'm really impressed about what they're doing in the Netherlands. They are really high level, high quality watchmakers. And that's also a company you would like to work for sure.
I like this game, so I'm going to do it on a high pace. Groeneveld turns you down. Who's next?
Well, with the know-how of today, for sure, Holtenrichs watches, because how they step up their game each and every time, it's amazing. And it's a dynamic company with nice people. I would like to work there as well. Yes.
Next one. Holterich says no. Who's next?
Maybe Benzinger, because Benzinger is a very small brand, but what they do is really brilliant. I've seen their movements in the Habring factory, because they also do the finishing of the bridges themselves, and they send the bridges back to Habring for final assembly. I'm really amazed about the quality of their work. And I knew Benzinger already before I knew Habring. That's also a very small company, but focusing on a good idea, a personal idea, not about mass product, but making something good and in a traditional way. So Benzinger, yes. You see, I like the smaller brands.
Yeah, you underwrite literally that you're an artisanal watchmaker, watch brand.
Yeah.
And would like to see the workings of a Patek Philippe or a Vacheron Constantin, or like a let's call them mass market horlogerie?
Yes, because I've been to a museum and of Patek Philippe, and if you see what they are doing and how they have been doing it, but the thing is, and maybe it's because of my late coming of age when it comes to watchmaking, I know from people who have been actually doing an internship at Jaeger or at Patek, is that you basically do a couple of years, one job, and that's the only job you have to do. before you go to the next, because it's really hierarchical, and you have to follow all the steps before you can reach to the point where you want to be. And I don't have the time to do 3 years only hairspring counting. So I do it all not in a rush, but in a shortcut way. So that's maybe also the reason to go for smaller companies where you have the opportunity to do that as well.
Amazing. So you spent 6 weeks there in Austria.
Yeah.
The Halbings needs to sign off on your internship because now it was for school. Did they sign off?
Yes, luckily they did sign off. Yes.
Congratulations. You're back in Holland. Now what? Are you graduated?
I will know after the holidays are ended. I handed in all my documents beginning of this week. And I got an out of office reply, obviously, that everything is closed. So I expect basically the first week of September an answer about when I will get my...
your diploma.
Yes.
And then what? You're going on a holiday yourself, I assume. And then what? Summer is ended.
I'm working hard on finishing the parts. I already got my lathe just before I went to Austria, and today I worked a full day at the lathe to make the good setups for the finishing of the parts. For example, the snailing of my ratchet wheel, and of course I will use quite some ratchet wheels before I have the perfect setup. So I'm doing a lot of this kind of work. In the meantime, the first batch of test dials are being made. As I told you, it will be a wooden dial. There is a small movie on my Instagram, Maas Watches, where you can see some steps in the production process of the dial. So now it's really full pull on finishing the first watches.
When can I strap on my Maas watch?
That's a very good question, but I still aim for end of this year, beginning of next year.
Really? So that's rather quick.
It is rather quick, but as I told you, I have the movements. I'm waiting still for tools to do the galvanizing the parts, the watch parts, like to apply the 14 karat rose gold. I bought the machines, but it takes some weeks before I will have it. So then I can also finish the parts the way I want to.
Are you going to opt for 4N or 5N?
5N. Yeah. The thing is that what I also learned during this 6 weeks is that you never, ever end investing in new tools. It's amazing how much you need to produce a watch the way you want to. I thought I had quite some tools and machines, but no, not even close to everything that you would need to do it from scratch yourself. So during my stay in Austria, I was buying still some parts. So my wife, when I came back, she said, I put everything in your workshop because I don't know how many parcels came in, but each and every time I thought, this I need, this I need, this I need. So it's a never-ending investment.
Does Richard also collect the antique tools like many watchmakers do?
Yes. As a matter of fact, he has a showroom on the ground floor where he has a milling machine and a drilling machine and really old tools, and he's really, really careful about them. And he gives the machines also names. So that's he's really fancy about those tools.
If the TRTS fam, the community, can help you, where do you need help from the community?
I would like to receive the feedback when I will publish the first pictures of the dial and hands combination and the finishing of the parts. I will publish that on Instagram in due time. And any feedback is really valuable. And to give an example, after the first podcast, I received a message from a nice guy, and he said, "Look, I heard about your podcast and your plans, but if I may give you an advice, please don't use a butterfly clasp on the strap, because if it's about the movement and the movement finishing, you just want to have a plain strap so that you can see the movement immediately." Well, that was a really useful advice. I like that that kind of feedback.
Are you worried about the hardcore down cycle of the watch industry?
No, because the segment I'm aiming for, I don't think they are so depending on the economic situation, to be honest.
What can you share more that you've not done in the previous episode? Can you elaborate a bit more about the dials, because it was still a bit secretive and experimental, let's say? You weren't clear on your strategy yet for the dials, because that is one of your more unique selling points.
Yeah, so the first 5 dials have been made by a colleague of mine who's really specialized in woodworking. And actually, he's now on holiday. So when he's back, I will go to his workshop to see the first pieces. And in the meantime, I'm working on the dial, the chapter ring for the sub-seconds. And together with the high gloss finish of the dial and the matte finish of the chapter ring, I think, at least in my imagination, I have a very nice combo. Especially if you add to that blued hands. That is a nice contrast in three different colors, which match perfectly together, I think.
Eric, I can't wait to see it. I am actually very excited. I loved your journey up until now. Where in the future, at what milestone are you and I going to sit down for part 3? Where is it that you think that it will be interesting for our dear listeners to catch up again?
If I finish my first watch, maybe if I'm going back to Austria to show Mr. Haring my first watch, that would be a nice moment, because then we can get him on the show as well. Because I'm also curious about his opinion, and he must be very honest and open. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't like it. But that's also nice if he shares that with the TRTS network, because we are open and honest towards each other. If I follow all the chats in the group, so maybe that would be a nice opportunity.
Hereby, a date confirmed. And indeed, our dear listeners, if you're not part of the TRTS community, Eric is an actual integral part and member of the TRTS community. You can hit him up there. You can chat with him. And as we've been saying nonstop, it's a community of equals and like-minded spirits. And we're very vocal, but very respectful. So if you want to join, definitely join our community by sending David, Rob, or I a DM, and we'll send you an invitation link. Eric, again, thank you so much for carving out a time while you're just back from Austria. Probably your wife wasn't too happy that I wanted to sit with you after she's missed you for 6 weeks.
That's why we go on holidays.
So thank you so much. I can't wait to see the developments up until the finished watch. I wish you all the best of luck. As you know, David, Rob, and I are here at your service. So is the TRTS community. And to our dear listeners, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. You can find all the previous episodes on our official website, www.therealtime.show. Our Instagram handle is actually the same. It's at therealtime.show. If you want to support the show, please do, because we're independent. We have no revenue streams. We are not sponsored. We don't sell any content. We're truly independent. So what helps us is get more followers and especially downloads. So please subscribe, like, rate our show, and definitely share it with like-minded friends. If you have any questions, feedback, and or criticism, please send us a message. You can DM us, and if you want to join the TRTS community, as I said before, send us a message as well. You want to chat directly with David, find him on Instagram at DAVAUCHER. Rob is at ROBNUDDS, and me you can find at my full name, Alon Joseph. And if you prefer to send us an email, just add our first name to the email address at therealtime.show. Same like our URL or IG handle. Stay sane and keep on ticking.